So welcome to today's podcast here, and I am sitting down with Mr. Stephen Baldridge. Am I pronouncing that correct?
Yes, Baldridge.
Baldridge.
Yeah, Baldridge.
Okay. Steve Baldridge, and I'm going to let him. I'm going to let him introduce himself a little bit, and you are welcome to come for this little interview. And one of the reasons you're here, you're actually one of the candidates running for Senate for District 8.
Yes, that's true.
All right. So just give me a little background about yourself and who you are, where you're coming from. And
Sure. Well, my name is Stephen Baldridge, and I'm running for Oklahoma State Senate District 8. I was the three-time mayor of Okmulgee and councilman. I've been a councilman since 2008, and I did take a year-and-a-half break my third term as mayor. I had some personal difficulties, and my wife had passed away 4 years ago from breast cancer. She was a nurse, and she worked at Creoaks in Okmulgee, and so she was plugged into healthcare, rural healthcare. But I'm also a father of two and a grandfather of three beautiful grandchildren. And so I've lived in Okmulgee probably about 35 years. I lived there from second grade through my ninth grade year. And then we moved to California to take over my grandparents' businesses and a dairy. So I worked on a dairy for about 4 years. And the interesting fact is my father's from Okmulgee. My mother was born in Ada, but she moved to California when she was 4, and my grandparents were from Ada and Roth. They lived out in the country, but they went to California for work, and my dad was a union pipe fitter, and so he was always on the road, and he wanted to be with myself and my sister before we graduated high school, because that's how much he was out. He was working in Blackwell or Illinois or Nebraska and working on power plants and nuclear facilities. But anyway, after I finished high school, I went in the Army National Guard, and I went in because I wanted to get a vocation. And I was 17 when I joined, and so I was 3 years active guard, and which I was full-time guard. And I first went to basic training, Fort Jackson, South Carolina, went to Fort Gordon, Georgia, and I was there going through my advanced individual training. And the first school was tactical satellite, and then I went to went back to my unit. They needed a computer repairman, and so they sent me back to school at Fort Gordon for another 6 months, and then I served my term out with the Army, and then I went to work for Honeywell. So after years of doing that, I worked in prisons in California. I worked on a Navy project for Honeywell for 3 years, and I went overseas. And so then I moved back to Sacramento for a while, and I always wanted to come back and move back to Oklahoma, and we would come back and visit my uncles and my aunts and my cousins in Okmulgee. And in Oklahoma, I have cousins everywhere. We have a large family. But my dad, originally, they were from IXL when they lived there. My grandfather was a sharecropper, and he had been a coal miner before that in this area.
Right.
And anyway,
you don't look that old.
Well, I'm 62.
You've been doing a lot in life.
I have. I've been busy. God's blessed me. I am a Christian. I grew up in church. That's the foundation of my moral character and how I behave. And you know, one of the things that I talk about on one of my commercials is being a servant leader. And I think that we have enough people that are arrogant, and I think that we need people that want to serve their community. And that's the thing that church taught me for years and years, was that we're there to serve others. That's what God and Christ called us to do. love one another. And so, for years, I helped in the church. I was a Royal Ranger commander, which is like a Boy Scout commander, but it's from Assembly of God. And anyway, I went to church for years doing that until my son graduated out of that program. And at that time, I was at IBM and I was working on British Petroleum. I did move here at the end of 2000, and I've been here ever since. And so I was working on British Petroleum as a computer engineer, and I was managing 10,000 servers. Eventually, I managed 10,000 servers for British Petroleum worldwide. So I traveled to India and UK and Chicago and Houston, and did a lot of stuff there.
So you're the man to go to if we have some computer problems.
Yeah, and and that's the thing when I think about being a state senate. The committees that you're on, the telecommunications and the technology committee, that all fits in with my background.
Right.
When I was at IBM, I went to school at night and I finished my bachelor's degree in information technology. And then later, I went to Hewlett-Packard and I was there for about 5 years. And then I was laid off because they offshored our roles. And
didn't Hewlett-Packard also lay off a lot?
They did. In 2015, they laid off 50,000 people, and I was part of that layoff. And so I had to do something different, and I wanted to stay home. My daughter was in high school, and I didn't want to move to another state because I love Oklahoma. And, even if I did move, then I'd want to come back because Oklahoma and District 8 has some of the best lakes, for fishing and hunting and boating, and just the family values in District 8 and in rural Oklahoma really attracts me, and that's what I like about Oklahoma. I don't like the fast pace of California. I can deal with it, but I always long to come back to Oklahoma, and I did.
Right. Now, with your background and everything, what really inspired you to run for the Senate?
Well, when I graduated from college in 2008, I had been working on my bachelor's degree for 3 years, and I was working full-time, raising 2 kids, and I felt like I wanted to do something outside of my church. And so I thought, I'm going to run for school board. So I went down and I was talking to the voter registrar, and she said, "You're in the right district," and so I ran. It was the ward, and anyway, she called me the next day and said, "Steve, you're 1 block in the wrong ward, so you can't run for that seat." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I went back down, I withdrew, and then she said, "You should run for city council." And I'm like, "What does a city councilman do?" So then, I got involved. I did run. I won, and that was in. I filed in 2017, and I was elected in 2018, and I took office April 2018. And so the thing that I wanted to do was, I had been serving in the church for years and years and years, and I wanted to serve outside the church. I wanted to make an impact on my community. And, Okmulgee has so much to offer, and we have so much capabilities and promise. It just seems like we're just struggling, because we have so much poverty in Okmulgee, but we have a lot of good things too. And so I really wanted to try to help bring more economic development to Okmulgee. Working on those projects and bringing in, with economic development, it helps the economy, and it helps build a strong community because they have jobs that they can go to in that community, and those people are more likely to be involved in sports with youth sports and their churches and, other community organizations like Rotary and Lions and and the Elks Lodge. But anyway, I just I got involved in the community that way as a councilman, and after a few years, I became the vice mayor. Right. And then in Okmulgee, you actually have to run for mayor. It's the councilman at large, and so after being a councilman a couple of terms, I did run as mayor, and I won, and I ended up running 2 more times. So I ran 3 times as mayor, and I won. And so I spent.
How long is the time period? Is it
They're
2 years, 3
3-year terms?
3-year terms.
Yeah, and so when they created the city charter, they set it up so every year you either have 2 council persons that are running for re-election, and then the next year the councilman at large, the mayor, runs for re-election, and then the next year the other 2 wards. So there's a total of 4 wards in Okmulgee, and then the 5th council person, councilman at large, is the mayor. And so they can live in any of those wards and still be in the charter.
How has your time serving as a mayor, vice mayor, city councilman, how has that kind of prepared you for the position you are now seeking?
Well, when I heard that Senator Thompson resigned, my heart just jumped because I really I'd been mayor 3 times, and when I came, I had a brief recess, and I came back to Okmulgee after my wife died, and then they appointed me to fulfill another term of the sitting mayor. And so I got back on the council, which I really enjoy being involved and trying to make a difference in Okmulgee in District 8. And so when I decided, I finished that term out, and then I ran again. I really didn't have any more ambition past being a council person. Now, I did think about running for county commissioner because I love Okmulgee, and so, but the timing is everything in politics.
Oh, yeah.
And, I would have never ran against Senator Thompson because it would have been a waste of time. And,
right.
But when I heard that he resigned that day, that it was in June, and I was down on Wadalata Road, and I was driving, we had been fishing all day on Lake Eufaula, and I have a boat at Extreme, and I was heading over there, and I heard that announcement, and it just, my heart jumped, and I thought, if ever what a time or ever a door was open, it's now. And so I look at myself, I'm not perfect, and I've learned a lot though. I looked it up. I've served 17 and a half years as a non-paid councilman for my community. Right. And that's how much I care about Okmulgee and District 8. And so for me to take this next step, yes, it's a jump. But when you look at the people that have gone before us, the Senator Ballard, Ballinger, he was one of my friends. And when I first moved back to Okmulgee, he had been a council person, and he was a county commissioner, and then he took Sheridan's place, and he was the state senator for a long time, and then he retired. And then after that, Roger Thompson took his place. And so, even in local politics, we need to groom people to take leadership, because people can't always keep doing the same thing and being out in front. And we have to groom our younger people and other people in our community that want the best for our communities to step up and serve on our councils, our school boards, our state level, and our county level, because we want people in those offices that care just as much about our community as we do and have our values as well.
Now, there's a lot of things when it comes to policies here in the state of Oklahoma. You have, the farming, you have healthcare issues in the rural areas. You have what would you say your 3 key issues you would be dealing with as a senator if you were elected?
Well, education is a really high passion for me, and so education is something that even it ties into so much. One is the success of our young people, training them up for either an occupation or going to vocational school, something that makes them productive students or citizens, so that they can give back to their community, but also that they can self-sustain themselves, making a living. And so education is so important. I've been to school my whole life, really, after grade school, high school, Army schools, factory schools, and then going back to college and finishing my degree. And then in 2018, I went back to OSUIT and I got another degree in electrical electronics. And the issue I had was, as a 57-year-old man that got laid off from Hewlett-Packard, never been laid off my whole career, and I had to face the reality of ageism. And so when people looked at my resume, they thought, well, he's, we don't want to hire him. I mean, I was managing 86 people worldwide, and managing over 10,000 servers, which was about, probably $15 million, more than that. But anyway, it was just, when they looked at my resume, they were afraid to engage me or whatever. But I needed a job. Right. And so after trying, I did F&I at Mike Bailey or Dick Bailey Auto for a while, which he's a really good friend of mine, and that was gracious that he brought me on, and I did that for a while, and but I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do, and so I went back to college, and just happened that when I graduated, and I went to work for a company in Manford, Webco, and I was working there as an instrumentation tech, and anyway, COVID came, and they laid off a bunch of us again. So that was the third time I got laid off. And so
you went your entire life.
Yeah.
Without
never
being
got
laid
laid
off.
Never.
And
never
then
been
you got laid off 3 times.
I got laid off 3 times.
What, 5 years?
Yeah, within 5 years.
Yeah.
And so so I I'd never even collected unemployment before.
Right.
And so I just kept trying. I was living on my retirement, and my wife was a nurse, and then
and you went through some personal issues there also.
Yeah,
so
and at one time I was
an
unemployed mayor going to college at OSUIT.
Yeah,
and
I guess they don't pay the mayors.
No, they don't
well.
pay the mayor. But I as you can see, I did not miss any meals. So God's been good to me, and God's always given me guidance, and I try to follow that path. The doors that are open to me, sometimes they close, and you wonder why. But God's trying to teach you something, and and I think it builds humility too. Yeah. And I
absolutely does.
And because we're all going through life, and we all want the best things for our lives and for our children and for our neighbors and our family. And I think that when we have some apathy for people that are going through tough times,
and people go through tough times, for one reason or the other.
Yeah.
Now, if I look back on my life. Yeah, I had an employment when I was 22 years old till I was 26. I worked as a general manager for General Motors dealership in Sweden, where I'm born. And that was the last time I had a job. I haven't had a job since.
Wow.
I went to business for myself.
Yeah.
So our lives are different, but
sure.
But that's one thing that attracted me to America, and it's kind of a hot topic here in Oklahoma too. And that is how can we improve economic development for small businesses and other things. People that want to start business.
You
mentioned education as one of your top things.
Yes.
economy?
Economic development. And one of the things that I did at Okmulgee was I was on the Okmulgee Area Development Corporation as mayor for 8 years. And so I learned a lot. And, you know, one of the things that that District 8 has is we've got a lot of land, so we've got a lot of ag, wildlife, and we have to build areas that companies can come, and they have to be shovel ready. You know, Okemah tried to build a facility, and they tried to recruit people. That was a challenge for them because it costs a lot of money. And so if you don't get a company to come in, then you've kind of taken a big risk. And then also, when companies come in, they're going to give you the specifications that they want their building made with. Right. You know, if they have heavy equipment, the cement may have to be thicker than what you built your building with. Right. And so one of the things about Okmulgee was we were a refinery city. So we had a lot of refineries. We had 2 glass plants. And over the years, the refineries left, and then the glass plants left. And one of the things that my dad did was he worked on Kelco when they built it back in the mid-'70s. He was a pipe fitter, and he worked out there, and some of my other uncles and cousins worked out there. But Kelco has been a great opportunity for Okmulgee County, and they have high-paying jobs. And recently, the city and our Okmulgee Area Development Corporation, we worked with Kelco for about 5 years, and the state of Oklahoma Department of Commerce to get them to commit to doubling the size of Kelco. And Kelco did commit to that. They built a $250 million expansion, and they used a TIF district, which was a state tool that we've used in Okmulgee as well. We have a North TIF district, and then Kelco has a TIF district. And with that is a tax incentive finance district that gives them the ability to keep some of that money back to pay for the expansion. But the schools, because of ad valorem, goes to mostly to schools, public school and the technology center and the county and the state. They have to agree to waive those years of new appreciation and allow that to go to that project or go to infrastructure improvements in that area. And Okmulgee did, because once that 10-year period is up, then the school district gets all the ad valorem dollars. So now, you know, in Okmulgee, the school district gets 71% of the property taxes. Right. And now with the new policy of the funds follow the student, that's kind of changing the dynamics. But we still have to maintain the buildings and the schools, and we still have students that we have to ensure that they have a safe and sound school that's taken care of. Right. You know, because I do believe in public education. We're paying for it. The taxpayers, one of the things that I think about is, as a taxpayer, as an American citizen, we're trading our time for money. And the government, whether it's the federal government, the state government, the county, or the city, they're a sponge. They're a bureaucratic sponge that will absorb everything they can get their hands on. And we as citizens, we have to monitor them to ensure that they're not wasting our tax dollars, because that's coming out of my time that I traded for money and your time that you traded for money. And so we need to hold our governments accountable, and that they're not wasting money and blowing stuff on wasteful projects, but things that are necessities for us to be successful in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think that's coming. That's something that really is coming now, and in the last couple of 3 years, the awareness among the voters is rising about how government really is spending money. what do you think personally? They can how can we get in there? Because the way I feel sometimes, right, is that our government has a tendency to want to hide where and how they're spending.
They're
money.
pigeonholing money.
Yeah.
And this gets back to the bureaucrats. And what's interesting is, so I think it's like the way I look at it is if you make $100 a week and the government's already taken 60%, if you by the time you pay your sales tax and your property taxes and your all these taxes that you have, and then you say, well, what would make the government happy if they had 90% of my paycheck? Would that make them happy? No, it wouldn't. They're a sponge. They are a sponge, and people that it's just a bureaucracy, and they have no feelings because it's a bureaucracy.
Right.
But what I see at the state level is they do these audits, and then they can't find money, but nobody's held accountable. So why is that? Why is our Attorney General not going after those people? Maybe they can't prove anything, but money disappears. And when they were doing these audits, those are the things that I think about, and I think a lot of us think about that because we work hard every day.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, every American works hard every day, and gets sucked up a little bit when it comes to taxes. And then you have your sales tax. So by the time you pay your income tax, Social Security tax, and all
Turnpike
taxes,
tolls.
state tax, toll roads, and on top of that, a sales tax, you probably pay 50-60% in taxes.
They don't call it a tax; they call it a fee. So that and the things they used to do that were included in what we paid for, now they want to charge you, to go to the park, to go, we have, and I think that's because of inflation for one. So our dollar doesn't go as much or as far as it used to go, but everything has risen in cost. When we look at laying asphalt on our roads, it's so expensive now. And, so we need to do a better job at maintaining the roads we have. But, it's really strange how Oklahoma has set up the sales tax is what the cities get to maintain all the roads and all the government functions in the city. And then the county, they get part of the ad valorem, and they also get sales tax. And but they have, thousands of miles to maintain in roads. Right. And road asphalt and maintaining roads is very expensive. And somehow the state has to help because the state doesn't exist without the counties and the cities. The state is just a bureaucracy as well. And so they don't exist without the people. That's our most valuable resource in Oklahoma is our people, people that are trained, that are going to school, that are raising families, that will continue the Oklahoma legacy.
Right. Changing the subject a little bit, getting down the road here a little bit. If you would win the election against your opponent, Republican opponents, you're going to meet a candidate that heavily advocates for public safety, and especially for children. How do you, where do you stand on all that?
On public safety for children,
the
or
public safety, and then I don't know. Have you studied Brewer or anything, and you know what he stands for, the Democrat?
No, I have not.
Right, but he lost his daughter.
Oh, yeah.
In a horrible.
I think I remember that.
Case.
Yeah.
So he is going to be very strong on those issues. Yeah. Where do you stand there? For instance, he advocates for sex offenders. They should do their time.
Oh yeah,
they
definitely.
Shouldn't be released. They shouldn't be out on the street for good behavior or anything like that.
Right.
And what really took his daughter.
Sure.
So where do you stand on
Well,
that?
as a computer engineer in California, I worked in Department of Corrections for 14 years in all the prisons in California. And we were actually building new locations, and the systems I put in were inmate tracking systems and basically inmate inventory. And then I also worked in DOJ labs for about 8 years at the same time. And so then when I came to Oklahoma and I started as a councilman, I got on the Okmulgee County Jail Authority. And so I did that for 12 years. And so I've been inside the jails, and also I've ridden with the police department. I've always advocated for the police funding. Right now we're spending $2.9 million a year for our police department in Okmulgee, and that's the highest cost in our fire department's about $2.4 million. But I think a lot of the like what happened with that one case was could be better handled with computer systems that have relational databases, and the things that you find out after the fact.
Yeah, one thing that we discussed when I talked to him about that, he said it is the underfunded police departments, especially in the rural areas, and that's where this guy
that's
ended.
true.
So they couldn't track him 24/7. I mean,
Well, and the other thing too is, I mean, let's just be honest here. When you have a police chief or police department and they don't get along with the sheriff or they don't get along with Light Horse, they can cause a lot of problems in our community. Right. And these agencies, they need to get with it, because, when you have the police departments not wanting to work with the jail authority, and it's because of their ego, instead of just they're there for public safety, and they need to remember their core mission, public safety. What I say a lot of times is our police departments are reactive. They're not proactive anymore. In the old days, they were proactive. They were in the neighborhoods. They were everywhere. And now, when COVID happened, they just sat in the police department and they waited for a call. And but we have people that are out on the streets at night with bicycles and trailers, and they're going through people's houses, and that's not okay. I totally believe in, if you do the crime, you're going to do the time, and we have to be diligent, and our judges need to not let these people out, and then you have parole boards that let people out.
I was going to say that because I think many of the judges, and especially in lower courts, are to blame for some of the crime problems we have today. They let them out. I mean,
it's unfortunate because we have I have some property here in Henryetta, and they talk about backpack people. And that's what we have in Okmulgee too. We have these people that are druggy, they're drugged out, and they're selling drugs, and they're robbing, stealing, assaulting people. They don't even have self-respect, much less respect for other people and their rights. And we have to address that, and that's whether it's neighborhood watches. One of the things that I want to focus on is better cooperation between the sheriff department, the state police, the DA, investigators, the highway patrol, and they have a pretty good relationship because they have a very specific job. But the sheriff department and our police departments need to work together in unison. And then we also need to work with tribal police. And McGirt really put a wrench in that. But in Okmulgee, we did do a memorandum of understanding, which is a cross-deputization that helps us work together, because we had a gap where if you were a native and you were a PD, then you couldn't do anything. You'd have to wait for Light Horse to come out.
Right.
And when people are calling 911, if one person is native and the other person's not, the dispatch would say, well, they didn't know what to do. And that's not okay. No. And so once again, it gets back to these department heads need to get in a room and they need to work this out instead of putting the public in danger. Because when you look at the overall picture, that's what they're doing. Right. They're putting the public in danger, and we need to be cooperative, whether it's city and county governments. I went through that when I first became a councilman. The city and the county didn't work well together. Right. Well, that's ridiculous, because the same people paying for everything, once again, the citizens are paying for the county and the citizens are paying for the city. And they are being territorial, which is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Right. And that needs to be stamped out of our government. We need to work with the state. The state needs to work with the cities, and the state does. There's so many things like ODEQ, Department of Environmental Agency. They work really well with the cities on their water treatment, their sewer treatment, and their distribution systems and their stormwater. And so that's the kind of cooperation we need at a county and city level with law enforcement. Right. And I think we have that in overall, but I think what happens is we get into the day-to-day grind, and then things happen like McGirt. Right. And it's taken years for us, and we're not through that yet either.
Well, or what do you think is the best plan to engage the voters, especially these special elections, has a tendency to be an extremely low voter participation. Yeah. How do you think we could better that? It's not a political question, but it's very important, because I look at it like, okay, you have 700, 800, 900, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 people voting
out of 85,000, but
80,000 or whatever.
Not all of them can vote, but I think it gets back to education, because my understanding of civics was from 7th and 8th grade. And I remember they had a presidential election, and these people, one of the candidates rolled through town, and I went over there and I listened to his stump speech, and I got involved, and I was interested in politics or how our city was run. My football coach was the mayor, J.B. Bennett, and and then he ended up being a representative, and then he was the director of tourism for a while. And so, but anyway, I think it comes down to education, because I think people are disenfranchised because they think their vote doesn't matter. But you know what's interesting is when the schools have a school bond, they can get it passed with 600 people, and they indebt the property owners with millions of dollars, just because people don't go out and vote. And we need to stand up. And
and I see that as a problem.
It is a problem.
It's a short-term and a long-term problem if the voters, and I don't know where you stand on it, but I'm saying if you don't vote,
don't gripe.
Sip it up.
Exactly, and I think people will disengage. But they need to be engaged.
Yeah. So you think education is a big part of the lack of the participation, because they don't understand the electoral system and the voting
they don't
system.
understand the impact until it impacts them, and then it's too late, because these laws are put in place, and then they have different effects.
That's really a good that's a good thought, and kind of never thought of it that way, but it does,
and there's always unforeseen effects of changing a law, and this session they came out with 3,000 bills, and maybe we need to look more at modifying the existing laws, and and we were talking about how to make Oklahoma more family friendly. We need to look at the laws that are in place, and maybe they need to be adjusted a little bit.
Yep. That's true. So as we wrap this thing up, this little chat we had today, I have a couple of more questions for you, and it's more like personal questions. What do you like the most about living in this area?
Wow. Well, I like the fact that we don't have 1 million people in District 8. I mean, we do have some highways. We have I-40, 69, we've got 75, but it's not crowded. To me, I used to work in LA, San Diego, San Francisco, Sacramento, and the traffic flow. I worked at downtown Tulsa for 15 years, and the traffic is, I mean, it's getting, a lot of people have come to Tulsa area, getting crowded, but they're working on the overpass in Glenpool. They're working on one in Preston. That's going to alleviate some of the traffic. But to me, this is just like paradise, really. We have some extreme weather, but our lakes and our parks are awesome. And Eufaula Lake is just, it's great. I mean, and the fishing here is just incredible. Right. And you talk to other people in other states, and they don't have the fishing that we have. And that's because we have awesome lakes. They're huge. And we have less people. And so, but we have a lot of people.
There's only like 5 million, 4 million, 5 million.
4.5 million roughly, something like that, maybe 4.3.
So it's a small state in a sense.
We are growing, and because people are coming here from everywhere because of the value. Oklahoma and District 8, you get a lot of money or value, a lot of home for your money, and it's just a wholesome place to live. People are so friendly here, and we have problems, obviously. Some of the problems that I'd be focusing on is water resources. Right. We need to manage our water resources. We need to have some major planning for all the rural water districts and our cities too. They need help because we're managing water for thousands of people, and we need to make sure that it's safe to drink, and we need to make sure that we have enough for when we do have droughts. Right. And so we need to build our capacity up, and that takes a lot of money. But it takes planning too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Water is a big thing. All right, so one more here. What is one thing that people might not know about you? And
wow,
that's a personal one. But that you would like for them to know about you. Let's put that in there too.
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, I played sports a lot, I was always a little. I went to school early because my birthday's November 28th. Right. And but anyway, I did love to play sports, and I was always a little small. But as I got older, I kind of gained on that, and but I loved playing sports. I love people, and I think my friends know that I do care about people, and whether I win this or not, I have a great life. God has blessed me, and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to, I still have my mother here, and my family. Those are important things, and right. I think that's what makes District 8 important, is our family values and preserving the way we live. We don't want to live like New Yorkers. We want to live like Oklahomans.
Right. Right. So, you kind of touched on my last one. What's the final message you want to share with the people of District 8? Well,
first of all, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve my community, and I will continue to serve no matter what. And I think that the thing that I want the voters to know is that I've been in the trenches. I've been a 3-time mayor, a vice mayor, city councilman. Every month we go to 2 or 3 meetings, and I do it because I care about my community. I don't do it because I get paid. I do it because I care about Okmulgee, Okmulgee County. I have relationships with a lot of people that are directors or the sheriff, the police chief, the fire chief, the city managers. I care about Okmulgee and Oklahoma and District 8. I go to Eufaula a lot. I have a boat down there, and I just love this area. And I will work tirelessly to promote tourism, to promote economic development. I will work to try to prepare our communities for more economic development. And, it takes a lot of planning, and it takes years of effort to compete with these other communities. And so that has to be planned out, and we have to get funding. I will fight for District 8 to get funding for projects, for water projects. Roger Thompson was great at that. He helped the city of Beggs out. He was working on Rural Water District 7, which is North Okmulgee County. But we need to build more capacity in our rural water districts. They need to be building some towers. We need to look at the engineering and see what we can do and where we can get more water. And so, those are long-term efforts. But if we don't have water resources, then we can't grow anymore. And I think, some people say, well, we don't want to grow. But, we do have private property, and people have the right to subdivide their properties. They have the right to build new homes, and we need more housing in District 8. Yeah. So those are things that, I will focus on and work with. We have Deep Fork community in Okmulgee, and they're building houses in our areas. And we need to do that in all of our towns and all of our communities, because our children need housing, quality housing. And so, those are the things I'm going to be focused on.
All right. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you soon again.
Thank you, everybody.
And everybody, let's remember this. Henryettan, we are trying to promote this so much that everybody needs to go out and vote. And we've touched on it today because it is so important. I would say a special election is equally important as a general election like the one we had on November 5th last year. It's important. Go out and vote.
Remember, vote Baldridge.
There you go.